Hello, welcome back to this episode of the Light Path podcast, where I want an experience of thinking out loud with you with something that I've just come across, and it has totally blown my mind and really allowed me to see the patterns of the past that I was holding on to in terms of behavior and really just approach to life. And how moving forward, it's really empowered me to respond and behave a different way. And it was when I came across this quote, and in true me fashion, I cannot remember where I found this quote. It's like I read it, it was seared into my brain because it hit so deep. Literally, one of those aha moments. And I went on this week-long spiral of deep thinking and reflecting that I'm just wanting to talk through with you out loud here now. And the quote was, or the saying was, and if you know who said it, please message me and let me know, because obviously I want full credit to them. But the saying was, overthinking is underfeeling. And it hit me because I would consider myself a classic overthinker. I love to analyze every angle of a situation. And for me, I think it's probably a trauma response, but I'll get into that. But it's really a pattern of mine. It's a preferred behavior of mine that I can see just from that quote. It is not working for me and is actually really destructive in my life. If you guys are on the Moon membership, then you know what a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza I am and his work. And he has spent years upon years studying this thought feeling connection and how we can and have the absolute depth of power to rewire our brain to work in our advantage. And although I've, heard him speak so many times and read all his work, and I'm really a believer in what he's talking about, it wasn't until I really heard that quote phrased in that way, that overthinking is underfeeling, that it really made everything tied up in a bow for me and to really think about it. So if you're not on the Moon membership, like in the last few full and new moons of 2023, we really looked into this power that we have, this sovereignty that we have over our thoughts and our feelings, and how if we take that sovereignty seriously, we can actually become so empowered and very powerful in our lives. And it's really, based on the energy of the universe and what it's calling for us to do, but also piggybacking off on the work of Joe Dispenza. And so just to sum that up, basically, he talks about our thoughts drive our feelings. And then our feelings, our emotions will really go back in and program, inspire, or drive our thoughts. And so we have this looping, hardwired brain that keeps us often really stuck to what he calls the conditions of the past. And so I love that when Joe Dispenza says that you can't think greater than how you feel. So a lot of self-development work and a lot of spiritual work really does focus on thought patterns. And it's a lot of reason why people get into meditation to really become the master of their thoughts. But really, that's important, but so are your feelings and your emotions, because as he said, you can't think greater than you feel. And this is a reason why I did a whole podcast episode on it last year, all about affirmations and how really they are ineffective in a lot of ways, because we can be affirming something and try to rewire our brain from the point of thought. But really, if our emotions aren't on board as well, like we don't genuinely believe it, and more importantly, we don't genuinely feel it, then we can't actually integrate that to create change. And so what happens is all of us are on this repetitive, constant loop of what it is that we know from the past because we've experienced it or we've seen it or we've been taught it or it's been part of our conditioning. And we're on a constant loop of the past in terms of our fear, what we don't want to experience again. So when I read that saying that really overthinking is underfeeling, the reason that hit home for me is because I had this deep realization and had to come to a very deep acceptance that emotional regulation is really hard. It's a learnt skill and it's something that we have to continually work on. Think of it like running. We learn to run when we're little kids. It's pretty natural to us. When we're little children, we have all the emotions and we actually don't really have a problem expressing them. And it's through our conditioning and our learning that we learn to regulate that. So we learn to regulate our emotions through either feedback from parents, social conditioning, shame, lots of shame around emotions and expressing emotions. I noticed that just naturally observing children for the last 20 years in my teaching career, that they get shamed or shame themselves out of emotions to avoid them because it all comes down to acceptance and being perceived as someone who is likable. And that's the same with running. Like we learn to run naturally. And then as we get older, we might learn to run technically. We might learn to run strategically in terms of how we want to run or what we want out of our running. And just like running, if you stop doing that, if you stop thinking about running and practicing your running, then what happens? Well, you can't really run very effectively anymore. And then you have to build that up. So this quote has actually really inspired me to think about how I emotionally, because I am someone that absolutely overthinks. And now I've come to the deep realization and acceptance is because I want to avoid the deeper feelings. Yet I know that if I was able to really deeply feel and really learn and be educated by my feelings, then I'm actually going to make a lot more effective decisions. This is especially the case for me in the context of interpersonal relationships. So, my sister commented to me, maybe I was in my 20s, and she said, "You're just someone that needs to talk things through a million times before you are able to really get a handle on it." And it's not in areas of my life like career or that. It's really comes into those interpersonal relationships. And it makes me wonder whether or not I had the opportunity to, or what really lies around my conditioning in terms of my emotional regulation. And I'm starting to reflect that maybe it wasn't all that great. No one's fault. It just is what it is. But it's amazing and really empowering to be in a position now where I'm like, actually, I can do something about that. I can actually begin to become the person that can hold my emotions. Because the biggest understanding I got from this, or the realization that I had by hearing this quote, was that I overthink to avoid the feeling, because the feelings are really overwhelming for me and really scary. But, and hindsight's a great tool, but if I had allowed my feelings to become very conscious to me and I allowed those feelings to give me information, then oh my gosh, I think there are so many decisions I would have made differently about the interpersonal relationships I was not only in, but I was choosing to be in, maybe in the future as well, that would have really helped me avoid them and avoid the trap of getting into a thought pattern that had me stuck in the thought and the analyzing to avoid how I was really feeling. Because if I had moved from the thought and simply just asked myself, how is this situation making me feel? And had been brave enough to be really honest about how a situation was making me feel. And I would have taken that seriously and allowed that to help inform the decisions I needed to make for myself, then it would totally have made my life so much more authentic, so much more grounded, and so much more my own. Because now I really have come to this deep understanding that we can't think greater than we feel. What do you know? A scientist who studies this, who's well renowned for talking about it, was right all along. That it's so, so true. And so I just wanted to put that out there to see in your life, like, how does this affect you? So an offshoot from this is maybe a little bit of compassion and space around understanding why it is that we do avoid emotions. You know, I was a child brought up in the 80s. We were renowned for going off to play, being super independent, you know, come home when the street lights come on. That was our rule in our family. And I would not change that for the world. I absolutely feel like we were that Generation X, that last generation that really got a grounded, I would say authentic childhood, in that we were really allowed to be kids and we didn't have that much adult influence. But maybe also what we didn't have were parents who were equipped, or societies. It's not even parents, it's like schools, everything, that really weren't about the feelings. Now, have we gone way the other way? Yes, I do believe we have gone way too far the other way. And so for me, it's like, okay, how can I bring the pendulum back into the middle and be able to feel my feelings and be safe in those and allow them to inform me as opposed to swallowing me whole? So on the Moon membership at the end of 2023, we were really working on looking towards our 2024. And look, we're still in early 2024. The third of the year's not even out yet. And so we can really have a think about, well, okay, if the rest of the year is ours, and we know astrologically things are going to start to ramp up now, go back and listen to the episode of the astrology of 2024 with Claire, that there is a lot of fire and a lot of forward moving motion. And so it's a great year to really be thinking about, what is it that we want to conquer? What is it that we really want to achieve? What are our goals? What are our missions? What is our purpose? But most importantly, how is it that we are going to feel? And that's something that really was highlighted through the last couple of new and full moons of 2023, where we looked at, okay, if these are the things that we want, if these are the things that we desire for ourselves next year, what are the thoughts that maybe are not aligned with that? How are we thinking in ways that don't support our dreams? And then we also had the last full moon of the year where we looked at the Cancerian energy of emotions and said, okay, what are the feelings that we have about ourselves or about our dream that really do sabotage and block it? And when you look at that in the light of, you can't think greater than you feel, what I really have come to realize is the very, very powerful impact and the energetic impact that our emotions have. So as you're moving through 2024, I would love to maybe challenge you. I'm definitely challenging myself in this way to think, okay, what is it that I really do want to feel? Not what I want, but what is it that I want to feel? I mean, how many of us are conditioned just to think about, what do you want, as opposed to actually, what do I want to feel? Because if I can't think greater than I feel, then if I start with how I feel, it's going to be able to help me create the thoughts to support the feelings, or to reiterate to me the validation of those feelings. And then I'm going to start to take aligned action with that. I mean, has the secret sauce to success always been there, hiding in plain sight, and we haven't seen it? That's literally how I feel about this information. Like I said, information that I've read and heard about over and over and over again. And it wasn't till I understood the impact that my overthinking was or the effect that my overthinking was having on my avoidance of really deeply feeling and deeply really being in connection to my feeling to a point where I realize that feelings are a choice and feelings are such a deep source of wisdom. So what if we took off the table this year everything that it is that we think we want, and we replaced it with everything that we want to feel or the desired emotions? Now, I'm not saying that our whole goal in life is to not feel negative emotions, but I will say that I think we'll have a lot more space to feel and hold space for the negative emotions to then gain wisdom from them when we are really focused on empowered action towards the positive emotions that we want to feel. So looking ahead for me this year, personally, I do really want to feel confident. Is confidence emotion? To me, it feels like an emotion. It's a feeling to me. I want to feel confident not when I am a certain thing or a certain way or a certain achievement. I want to feel authentic confidence now. I want to feel complete presence and pride in the now. I also want to feel a deep sense of peace. I think that with so much changing in the world, it's scary because it can rock our foundations. And to me, peace isn't that everything is calm and fine. It means that I am calm and fine regardless of what is happening externally for me. And the other big emotion that is really the source of driving everything that I do this year is love. And it seems a pretty obvious one, right? But I've actually made it a conscious choice to have that as my mantra, goal, or desire of the year. And it's love. If you have listened to me for a while, you know that I don't actually do New Year's resolutions, but I like to pick a theme or a word for the year. And this year it is love. And it's not about being in love, although of course that's part of it. You know, you want to be able to be showing up and being in love with your, chosen person at that time. But to me, it's more about having that essence of love infuse everything I do. And I don't think I've ever spent a significant amount of time really diving deep into love and understanding what that means for me, but also what that requires of me. And I think love comes in many forms and through many expressions. And I'm really excited to discover how when I have love at the core of everything I do, and when I say everything, I really mean everything. Like when love is at the core of me doing laundry, when love is at the core of me sitting in front of a client, when love is at the core of me when I'm maybe having a disagreement with somebody, that love drives everything I do. I'm so excited to see how that emotion or intention, feeling or disposition really transforms the thoughts that I have about the laundry, the client, the dispute, whatever it is, how my thoughts change about that situation. And as a result, how I change showing up into that situation. And that this year is really a year that I welcome emotions, and I welcome them purely for them not to come engulf me and to swallow me whole, but I welcome them to inform me. And I allow myself to really create a safe space for them, that I am so confident within myself that I can hold whatever emotion is coming up so that I can hear the message it's trying to give me about the thoughts that I'm having about a certain situation that I may be in, so that I can create and I can make very effective choices. if I had been really honest about some overthinking I did about a certain someone a while back, then I would have realized that I was completely avoiding the way in which they or the situation was making me feel. And the reason why I wanted to avoid the feeling was because if I admitted the truth of how I was feeling, I could not have continued in that situation. And so I stayed in overthinking to completely avoid the feeling. And so knowing this, I feel so happy and empowered for the past version of myself, because now I can see exactly what I was doing. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't delusional. I was just trying to avoid the truth, because that truth of the emotions of how I was feeling about that situation was going to make me make a choice that I was just really avoiding. And I avoided that through overthinking. If I had done this with my work, if I had been really honest with the context in which I was teaching, the environment was making me feel, I would have made extremely different or drastically different decisions, because there would have been no space for the thought of staying in what was an extremely damaging and very toxic, I would say abusive environment. So I wonder what you guys think about this. Is that something you do? Do you overthink to underfeel because the feelings are going to throw up so many unavoidable realities when you really accept the way in which you're feeling? Are you doing this in your work? Are you doing this in your interpersonal relationship? You know that obviously every single one of my appointments are highly confidential, but I will say that if you're someone that's listening to this and thinking to yourself, oh, I can not admit the truth to myself about my chosen profession or chosen workplace or chosen person, because if I did that, then it's going to blow up my life, or no one else feels this way. I'm telling you now, I guarantee you everyone else is feeling this way. I sit with people day in, day out, and everyone comes with the same, in inverted commas, problem and the same fear about facing it. And that is, if I really admit how this feels, then I can't avoid the reality of what I know is on me to do. And I may not want to choose that because I'm scared. I may not want to do that because I can't perceive how that choice of changing it is even possible. But that is, I guess, the adventure and the fun of being human, right? And how cool will it be when we're all so empowered within ourselves to be able to hold space for those really tricky and strong emotions, and be able to have them speak to us with their wisdom, as opposed to scare us into submission or trying to cognitively think around or over or completely reshape something that isn't there to be reshaped. It's just there to be accepted and to be used to move through and on. So I'll leave you with the quote again, that overthinking is underfeeling. And that Joe Dispenza's take on this, or adding to this, is that you can't think greater than you feel. And my pledge this year to me, and I invite you to join me, would love to hear if you do, that I'm not going to intend this year things. I'm going to intend feelings, and have everything that I do really honor the emotions, the empowered emotions that I want to feel, but also hold space for the feedback I'm getting from any negative emotions, instead of going to my thinking and trying to outsmart, outrun, or outthink those difficult emotions and the truths and the wisdom that they hold. If you've got any thoughts on this, I would obviously love to hear them over on our Facebook community group. It's a private group. It's so supportive and beautiful. So join us over there at the Light Path community. The link is in the show notes. As always, I'd love for you to really support this podcast by subscribing to it, giving it a 5-star rating and a written review if you can, wherever you listen to it. And as always, really welcome your feedback or input on this. So until we meet again on this platform, as always, wishing you all the love as you walk your path in your absolute greatest light.